today I haven't been down here for a little while. I did get one dose of fertilizer done down here before we got some decent rain, so that has definitely helped. I noticed that this was a little slower this season, but I did look back at some of my stuff from last year. After it started to green up, I did get a fertilizer app down last year, and I delayed that a little farther this season, so I think that definitely made a difference down here. But it's not perfect. There are some weeds down here. I'm just really trying to make a decision in such a wild type of environment. So it's going to have a whole bunch of stuff coming in down in the woods here that I don't really care if there's a few things here and there. There's some clover in here. There's a little bit of nutsedge. And we'll just see how it progresses through this season. So this is pretty much just the original work that I did. And if you haven't seen a photo of what this used to look like down here, I'll try to find that again and place that in the video here. But major difference from what this was before to a really beautiful area. One of my favorite areas on our property, especially in the summer heat, when you can come down here and get out of that and get into the shade. It's an area that we hope to enjoy a lot more during the summertime, but I want to give you a glimpse of that real quick. And as careful as I am in backing up and everything, it's really wet down in this corner, and so that zero turn is not probably the best option to have down here, but sometimes I need to get some mowing done and get it done quickly. So this is an area where it's probably the thinnest that I would like to do maybe an overseed this season. We'll talk about a piece of equipment that I got recently in this video as well that might help get some of this work done this fall. Also, this was the first mow on this section this season. If you'll remember, I did put some seed down in this area last fall pretty late, and there was some mold damage down through here. You can see here a couple of areas, but overall, just for the single seeding that I did and no irrigation down here to help it grow in, just a few rains in the fall time, it's not looking too bad for considering those conditions. This is the dense shade testing, so line right in the middle right there on that side is bluegrass, this side is ryegrass, and as soon as these trees up here get fully bloomed out, this is the spot that I found that's pretty much the most shade throughout the season. So I just wanted to see what will happen on there, and in true bluegrass fashion, you can see it's got a long way to go to mature. It's not very thick yet. Yes, the Time Master does still exist, and I'm gonna try using it again. I haven't started it at all this season, so we'll see. So a long way to go on a lot of these sections yet. I mean, this is just the first mow that I've done on these, so it's got a long way to go in terms of getting full maturity, and we'll see how it goes later in the season as to how things mature and overseeding and all that as we get to fall. But it doesn't really matter if it's perfect right at the beginning. I think the first mow always makes things look nice and tidy, even if it's not a perfect yard yet, or it's not full, or it's maybe not exactly to your expectations yet. That first mow will really clean things up and make it look nicer. So still a little wet over here on this side. Probably really shouldn't have been out here today, but I wanted to get this mowed, and it's starting to get a little warmer here too, so I don't want to wait too long on these first mows, as it's almost going to be June here, right around the corner. So I teased that I had a new piece of equipment just a little earlier in the video, and this isn't brand new, but it's pretty close. This was on Marketplace, and this is a hydro aerator. So you've seen me probably in the past, if you've been watching for a while, use one of these aerators that has the hydraulics so that it actually punches holes here and you're not rolling on a drum. But this one is a bigger version. I didn't even actually know they had one this big, and so this is gonna help me a lot, I think, in my fall renovation work, and hopefully with the way my soil is, and since it's a little more on the silt side and sandy side, I should be able to pull cores on there and then let them dry out a little and drag them back and see if I can break them all up and get a top dressing out of that. So that's gonna be my goal. I'm not sure if it's going to work like that, we're gonna see. But otherwise, eventually when I get a golf green going too, I wanted to get an aerator big enough that I can handle something like that. And this might be the one at that point, I don't know. There are golf green aerators, of course, but they get really expensive. They can be really hard to find. And I found a good deal on this. It was probably about 50 hours on it, so it's almost brand new and in really good shape. So you'll be seeing this thing in action later on. Definitely allergy season here for sure, even though I was wearing my mask yesterday. Had to do a lot of clean out on my one mower deck, and that really got to me. So today, if I sound just a bit here stuffy, it could be that, or also I noticed yesterday that it looked pretty hazy outside, and I can always tell a difference in the way the sun looks when it gets smoky here. So I went and looked at the smoke and the fire map today. There's some fires going on, it looks like, in the western part of Canada, and the jet stream takes all of that stuff and brings it down here as far as smoke goes. So actually today it looked like there were some alerts in Minnesota, and if it's not really something in the Midwest we probably think about a lot or pay attention to as far as breathing quality and air and all that stuff. I am pretty much allergic to everything outside, and I've noticed in the last few years that the smoke also tends to sort of bother my breathing and stuff, so I have to kind of be careful with that. Looks like later today it's going to get a little worse, so I need to try to get some work done before that happens and I can get back inside. I really love that mower, and I've been using it exclusively on the plots, but the only thing that I've noticed is because of how light it is, that is a good thing in some senses, but because of how light it is, I'm noticing that the height of cut is not quite exactly what it's saying. It's not pushing down into the turf, it's sitting up, especially if you have pretty thick turf here. And we'll go check out the fescue here in a second, because that is extremely lush right now. But here on the rye, which is even a thinner blade, I'm just gonna stick this down to the soil surface so I can get an idea of where the turf is at. So I have that set at 2 inches. So that's measuring about 2.5. Let's check another spot. About the same there, 2.5. So I think in different places, also remember your grass is not probably completely even everywhere. So you're gonna have some spots that are lower, spots that are a little higher, depending on how the wheel falls into a spot, but I'm gonna check the fescue right now. If you like tall grass, this is the stuff for you, man. This is thick and very lush, and as I've said before, this is not old type fescue where it has a real rough feel to it. It's actually pretty dang soft. So if you like the taller stuff, I personally don't really love the way that this looks in terms of the shagginess and all that, but I can appreciate it for what it is. It's a really good grass. The color is fantastic. So let's get down here into there. So I was at 3 inches on the mower, and that's saying 3.5. So it looks like pretty consistently here, we're about a 1/2 inch over what it says in terms of whatever you set it to on the mower as height of cut. And like I said, right here, there's no doubt. I mean, you are going to be sitting up on top of this turf with that mower. It's not extremely heavy by any means. It's just good to check that every once in a while, because you might be thinking you're mowing at a certain height and you're actually not. So 3.5 here on this. If you want a tall cut yard, here it is. One quick check on the bluegrass just to see where I'm at on this too, and yep, about exactly the same. I was at 2 inches on my mower, and that's at 2.5. So eventually, after the spring flush happens here, where you're getting so much growth and so much growth, I may try to gradually take this back down to around 2. I was trying to do that in the spring, and I just had a few issues. It's not absolutely perfect as far as level, so I was getting just a couple spots where I was getting some scalp spots. But so these low cut plots need quite a bit more work this season. Remember, this is the first spring for them, so they're not even a year old yet. And it's going to take some time and maturity to get them where I want them to be. But right now, having a lot of seed head issues, especially in the rye and actually back there in some of the fescue, to where I really can't get that manual reel to go through there. It's just, there's so many stocky plants. So what I'm having to do is go to the lowest setting on the rotary mower, and anyone who's done that before knows that a rotary right against the ground with that blade, it tends to rip some of the grass blades and not cut quite as clean. That's why reel mowers do such a much better job at the low height of cut. But for right now, until I can get through that seed head stage, I don't have much of a choice. I can't cut through it very well. And just because I got a few questions on it recently, here is the micro clover. I had to really scalp it down a couple weeks ago. I let it go a little more in the spring than I thought it was going to, and the growth on how aggressive it's been has surprised me. I thought it would be slower than it has, so I actually have had to keep up mowing it quite a bit more than I thought I was going to. And right here is the micro clover and the tall fescue together, so if you get a sense of what that looks like, it looks like a bunch of clover in grass to me, but hey, that's just what I think. I've been trying to get this area down to a true 1.5 or somewhere right around there. So I have that mower set at 1.5, which we just found is probably not quite there, but this is a lower turf in general, so it's probably not sitting up quite as much. But unfortunately, as you'll see right here, this is just a low dip spot, and so I do get some scalping areas. Just wanted to show you that. I'm trying to get this as tight as I can this season to see if I can avoid the seed head issue. So far it's looking pretty good. There are some stems in here, but I'm keeping this thing consistently mowed. Definitely some beautiful stripes on ryegrass, of course. Next thing I need to get done today is I need to do my grub prevention. I don't know about where you live, but I've been seeing an extreme amount of June bugs right now, they're pretty gross at the end of the day. You can't even leave your lights on or anything at night because they just are swarming the porch and the lights and everything, so it's pretty nasty right now. But eventually those are going to go down into the yard. They're going to try to lay eggs in the soil. Those are going to become these grubs, and the grubs love to feed on the roots of your turf. And then in the summertime it can be difficult to figure out, depending on how dry it is, if your yard is just browning for dormancy reasons or drought reasons, or if you have a grub problem. But if you have an irrigated turf and you notice some brown spots showing up here and there, you might want to go check, see if the turf just pulls right out and there's no more roots there. Because if you find that, you're probably going to find grubs underneath. The grubs can do, honestly, a lot of damage, so a prevention product, today I'm just using this Scott stuff, is going to be what I'm going to go with, just because it's easy to get. If you want to spray something, you can go with acelepryn, which is going to be the same active ingredient as what's in here. This is just going to be something you can find in the store. That is going to be what I'm going to apply today to try to get this prevented. So that's all there is to it for that pretty easy application. I'm gonna get this watered in within the next day or so if it doesn't rain. It's maybe gonna rain, maybe not. You know how that goes. That's been a few things I've been up to here in the last few days. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.